Hey Roy, thanks for letting me join you guys. I'm delighted to be able to talk with you about FCE fails. It's a big problem and one that affects all of us around the world detrimentally. I get called to comment on this maybe weekly, pretty often actually, because I did the chapter on the functional capacity evaluation in the AMA Disability Evaluation Handbook. And of course, I've done a lot of training on this over the years. And one of the issues that people seem to stumble over often is not using self-report data to help guide the evaluation. Some people, for some reason, have been, I'm going to put in air quotes, trained to avoid self-report data, and it's just ridiculous. It used to be a standard 2 or 3, I almost said centuries ago, 2 or 3 decades ago. But self-report data are now really much more widely accepted, and the case law supports that. And I'm sure you're going to be talking about that with regard to the Holmstrom case and things like that. But I use self-report data in many ways. One of the ways is to identify people with symptom magnification syndrome. We're not going to talk about that today. That's another issue. But the way that's pertinent for today has to do with using self-report data to set up the FCE, to help the client help us identify what needs to be looked at in terms of the specific job demands that they may be struggling with, maybe can't do or have limitations in doing. And the case I'm going to use is one in which if the evaluator had used self-report data to pick up some of the things that were necessary, the evaluation would not have been rejected by the court and another evaluation competing with it substituted for it. The the case is a real one. We've anonymized it, and I'm going to present it to you right now. Thanks for your interest. Alice Jones is a 30-year-old dental hygienist who had been very successful in her career for about 10 years when she was seriously injured in a motor vehicle accident. She fully participated in rehabilitation and did quite well, but was left with a complex regional pain syndrome type 1. Alice was referred for a functional capacity evaluation by her employer's long-term disability insurance carrier. The clinic that did the evaluation conducted something that they called a musculoskeletal pain FCE. The problem wasn't with the title, the problem was with the narrow focus of the FCE. Now, it's not at all unusual for a claims person to make a request for an FCE and not really know exactly what they need. I've done a lot of training with insurance carriers, and the turnover is pretty substantial. And the people who are really experienced, typically the senior claims managers, often don't make these kinds of decisions about referring for an FCE. They don't specify what kind of FCE they need. So it's really crucial for the evaluator receiving the referral to clarify that before going any further. And this was a major problem for this particular evaluation because she really needed a job match FCE. The FCE that she got was not a bad FCE if you're only looking at musculoskeletal pain. But that wasn't the question. The question was, what is the interface between her CRPS and the job demands of a dental hygienist? The musculoskeletal FCE came back indicating that there was no objective evidence that she could not work as a dental hygienist. Now, she had gone back to work for about 6 weeks with limited success. She was never able to get up to a full day. In fact, she struggled to get up to a half day on a regular basis. She also had a problem with symptom aggregation. Her symptoms got worse as the week went on. That was a real serious issue. On the basis of this FCE, the insurance carrier denied her benefits. Now, of course, that was challenged because she had already demonstrated that she couldn't work on a regular basis. The court ordered another FCE and specified that it be a job match FCE, taking a look at the match between her CRPS and the job demands of a dental hygienist. And so it's no surprise to any of us about what happened. The evaluator collected information about her job demands, collected information from Alice about the limitations that she was experiencing, and did an evaluation that focused on the interface between the two. And the new evaluation found that there were 6 different upper extremity performance tests that were below employment standards. They also did something that was very wise. They had her come back and did some repeat testing the next day. Now you might be thinking, wow, that's a lot of money to spend for a couple of FCEs, especially if the second one is 2 days. And you're right, but keep in mind that Alice's long-term disability benefits were about $8,000 a month. And so addressing that appropriately was really worth the investment that the insurance carrier was required to make. They wanted to get good information to be able to manage the case properly. And so Alice came in the next day, and all 6 of those performance tests were an additional 10% to 30% below her prior day's performance. And of course, they did all the necessary full effort testing, and they found that each of her decrements were dependably tied to her symptom reports. On this basis, they offered the opinion that she could not continue in her career as a dental hygienist, and that is the result that the court accepted. So let me tell you how I handle this sort of issue so that I avoid these problems. First of all, I get a good job demands analysis, and I tie the evaluation to those job demands. And if the person's had a failure in a return to work trial, I'll get information from the employer or the employer supervisor and the client about what the problems were. But secondly, and this is very easy to do and quite useful, I tie the self-report to observation during the testing. In this case, I would have used the hand function sort and the bus bench. These are both tools we developed about 30 years ago to handle issues like this. The sort progresses from ADL tasks to IADL tasks, all of which the client is familiar with. The tasks become more demanding and more vocational as we go along, and we begin to get a sense of the trajectory of the person's limitations. We also begin to collect information about the kinds of tasks that we want to administer in terms of our performance testing so that we can corroborate self-report with observation in the evaluation. We will also collect information about what kinds of tasks do not cause a problem for the person, which is an important issue in these evaluations, especially when you've got a person who's got a distal problem, such as upper extremity CRPS. They're not going to be globally disabled. That person is going to have specific limitations that cause them to be work disabled for those specific problems. And so we wind up administering a job match FCE that is tied to the demands of that particular person's job. Roy, thank you for letting me come to you today in a video. I'm traveling and I'm not able to be with you, but I really appreciated the opportunity to address this issue with your students. Take care now.